Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Black Anime Verse, where Black characters stand in the anime and manga world. My name is David the Smiley, and thank you all for being here today. But first and foremost, let me take these sunglasses off, because I need to be able to see the presentation. So again, my name is David the Smiley. I am a cosplayer here in Houston, Texas. I'm also an LGBTQIA cosplayer as well. I also do acting, voice acting. I'm a podcaster and a Q&A hostess too. So for the podcast, I also talk about representation in media. And this is kind of how I got to this panel today. And the Q&A hosting also is part of those interviews too. But the podcast is called Let's Talk, Why Representation Matters in Media. So first and foremost, welcome Anime Matsuri fans. Thank you all for being here today. This is my first time doing a panel at Anime Matsuri, so I'm really excited for it. Even though it's 1,000 degrees outside, I'm really excited for it. But today we'll be talking about the impact of artists, studios, and writers, why representation matters. We'll also be talking about the different anime and manga characters. And I will be taking questions at the end of this presentation. And there will be a mic going around. So, first and foremost, inclusion or tolerance. Which one is it? Now, if you look at some of the characters that you see in today's anime and manga, you would think that we're included, but a lot of these characters, even though they are established, were more tolerated because of how they're drawn, how they're represented. Some of these translations of the characters are not done properly, but at the same time, we've also had characters who will be seen as a villain because of their shade of their skin, like how they look, how they act, and this is also, some of this is coming from like Black culture as well. Again, and then we're talking about being able to see accurate depictions in different forms of media. So today, if you look at some of these characters, you're thinking like, oh, this is one of my favorite characters, or oh, like this character has like aspects or like mannerisms like me. And then you realize it's like, it's not the best representation, but it's some form of representation. And you also have to realize that some of these cultures, like you have Western culture, you have Eastern culture, see each other completely different. And again, as I say, when some of these characters were established, back then, we didn't have the internet like that. Like, the digital age was not as available as it is today. So you aren't able to get fully accurate representations. You can even see how, like, movies, it would take them forever to go from theaters to VHS or like into your home. But then you gotta remember that it takes those same movies longer to go across seas. There could be a movie that came out in 1950, and you probably wouldn't see it until 53 or 54, because again, that movie's coming across seas. So it wasn't, the digital age wasn't as quick as you can see today. One of the other things about it is how often are Black characters seen in manga and anime. You have to think about it, because are we being seen, or are there characters like that? Or are they just Black-coded characters? And there are quite a few characters that are Black-coded, but you may not see them because you're thinking that, oh, it's just this character, oh, I have this character. It's like, no. You have certain characters that are Black-coded, and then some characters that just have a darker skin complexion. But the other thing in these characters is Black culture being represented within them? Like, is it being included? Is it not being included? you don't see that as much because, again, one thing I'll always say about Black culture is how hair is a part of our identity. So, like with my cosplay today, I'm cosplaying a character who has an afro, but in the video game that he's in, he is of a lighter complexion. But he does dancing, he does like kind of Michael Jackson style moves, even though he is a Pokemon character. He's a Pokemon trainer. Mirabee is the character's name. So, but he's one of the only characters that has like a black code to him, but you may or may not be able to tell the difference if the character is actually light-skinned black or of a different ethnicity, nationality. And that's just the cultural part about it. One thing I will say about black-coded characters, where they stand in the anime manga universe, is a prime example would be Knuckles the Echidna. Probably one of the biggest black-coded characters that we talk about a lot and we debate about a lot. One of the biggest things is how the character has, like, his tendrils are more like dreadlocks kind of braids, but it doesn't necessarily look like that. And I'm not just talking about a fan art, fan expression. I'm talking about how the actual character is, because if you look at the history of the character, he was actually supposed to be black, but they decided to go against it. But if you look at the character's shoes, he has the Jamaican flag on his shoes. And that's just one like part of it again, how the characters are black coded, how black culture is in there, but it's not in there. And again, we're in 2024, so we still have the same thing going on as of now. Now, I want to talk about the blurred perspective. For those of you that do not know, a blurred is just a black nerd, and we enjoy things that are nerdy, geeky, and it doesn't matter of our skin tone, sexuality, gender, all of that. We are just people that want to actually be included in what's going on. Like, we love that all of this, like all of the manga, all of the anime, like the comics, all the stuff we see with the live actions, the voice actors, we love all that stuff. And it's nice to see yourselves like in that big screen, like on the television series. It's very nice to see it. But that's just kind of like the blurred perspective. I think I'm somewhat of a blurred the more that I like kind of delve into the definition of what blurs actually are. So, but for those fellow blurs out there, hey, I'm here for y'all too. Next up, for those of you that may not know like what anime is, now just know that anime is a style of Japanese film, television animation, and it's usually aimed at adults and children. You see it range from like 2D and 3D art styles. So you'll see that with a lot of different manga like animes today. Take, for instance, Demon Slayer, which is kind of like a popular one. Even One Piece, Gundam, like some of those animes, and how they'll switch from like a 2D art style to like this full-on 3D epic like style that's almost like coming out at your face. And then again, most animes are created from manga. You have some that are just like they're standalones, but most of them are adaptations from their manga. And anime is also catered to the demographic based on art style, which I will be getting into in my next slide. But that is part of like the big thing, is that we see those characters, we see those styles and how they're drawn, but how is it marketed? Some people don't know the difference between the two. And then we'll also talk about manga and manhwa as well. So for manga, that's Japanese graphic novels. Again, they're intended for adult consumption based on details and drawing. A lot of the art styles, again, are catered to demographics. And this is predominantly a 2D art style. So some of them are just black and white, but the other thing about that is that they can also be very colorful too, because you do have mangas that have color in them, and then you have others that are just black and white, and that's predominantly because it's a lot easier to print out. That stuff costs money. Next up, we'll talk about the different styles. So you have shonen, that's mostly intended for adolescent boys, which a lot of us watch. You have like animes like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you have Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh! If you remember Shonen Jump, like that was predominantly meant for young adolescent boys, like teenagers. Like that is how that art style, those mangas, those animes are marketed to you. Shoujo is more of a like girly romance one. So you'll see certain animes kind of like that. Same for seinen, which is more of a young adult. Not necessarily adolescents, but young adults. And then you have Kodomo, which is for younger children, and Josei, which is more for women. So it's gonna have like a softer style to it. Again, most kid animation is going to be very kiddish, and the interactions are also going to be kiddish as well. So right here we have examples of Josei art styles and seinen art styles. So the first one is going to, I forgot the name of this, oh my god. I forgot the name of this anime, but that is a Josei art style right there. The second one is a seinen art style, which is my dad's husband. I forgot the name of this anime and manga. I'm sorry, y'all. It's also a little early too, but I am just like kind of blanking out on it. I'm so sorry. But these are the art styles that I mentioned earlier. And also the next art styles, again, shonen art styles. So these are Bleach characters. You have Jackie Tristan and Lily Barrio. But these are more of a shonen art style that's, again, going to be for younger adolescents. So what I want to talk about next is the importance of the studios. So there are roughly 4% of anime and manga writers and artists that are black, roughly. It's still growing, but that's not a lot, 4% out of all of that. But again, this is just because we're not Japanese. So we're still going to like take some of that art style. But again, there are very few black-owned studios, and because of this, like there is a mistranslation of how black characters or black culture or black coded characters are. You can see that like, oh, it's only just like a 70s, 80s style character, and then you have another representation where it's more modernized. And then like, say, these are characters from like the 70s and 80s, like these kind of concepts. But you also have certain live action things as well. And what I also have listed is 4 like animation studios that are all like black owned. And Darch Taiji, that is a black owned anime studio that is in Japan that was created by twins Arthel and Darnell Isom in 2016. So not even 10 years ago. But this is also located in Japan. And they do 2D animation, and they combine Western styles of art with traditional Japanese themes. And they have a catalog of things too, like they've worked on One Piece animations and Demon Slayer animations as well. Next up, Martian Blueberry. This was co-founded by Love Barnett and back there Carl Jones, who is also an award-winning animator. This studio focuses on 2D and 3D animation, and part of their mission is bridging the diversity gap. BWA Studios, which is Black Women Animate, this one was created. They create content and they do programming across multiple platforms. Founded by CEO Taylor K. Shaw in 2017, and the staff is all women. Like, this is an all-women animation studio. Along with what they're doing is bridging the gap with diversity, but their focus is making sure that gap is bridged on and off screen. And then lastly, Lion Forge Entertainment, which was established in 2019. This is an all-Black animation studio, and then their thing is being able to create content for children of color around the world. Now, of the 4 that I just mentioned, only one of them is located in Japan. The rest are still stateside over here. So we don't see anything coming strictly out of Japan. It's just going to be coming from here, stateside, but again, it still has that Japanese influence to it. So one of the writers I do want to talk about, again, Arthel Isom, I did mention him earlier, and so he is one of the co-creators of Dark Shitaji Studio, and I know I am butchering that, so y'all are going to have to forgive me for real. Again, created with his twin brother, Darnell. The full name of the company, Shitaji Da Daiji, and that is meaning foundation of important. So that's the full name of the studio, and again, I was created in 2016. I did briefly touch on it, but they do multiple animation for different projects. So you have One Piece, Attack on Titan, Fire Force, Star Wars Visions, and a few more. So they've done some of those as well. Back on the last slide, I know Marsha Blueberry, they've done work for Megan Thee Stallion in some of her music videos too. Even though people say Megan Thee Stallion is sexualizing anime, she really isn't. You guys are just uncultured. But these are the things that we have, and this is why the representation is important, because no, a Black woman isn't sexualizing anime. You just haven't watched anime. You most certainly haven't read the manga, because the stuff that you actually see on screen is not the stuff you're going to be seeing in the mangas. One of the artists I'll be talking about is Blake Showers, also known as Blake OBK. Now, he is an American illustrator, but also he does mangaka, and the artist, he illustrates and draws, again, Japanese art style. He does a blend of American cartoons with influences from anime and manga, and he's also the creator of Four Strikes. So look into some of these like animators and writers, but again, do know that this is about 4% of people that are making this content. And again, Arthel is probably like one of the only few that are in Japan. Next up, let's talk about the actors. Now, for some of you that do follow anime, you do follow mangas, there's a small percentage of actors that are in anime and manga that are Black. Like, that's just like the characters, but when it comes to like the actual like live actions and everything, there aren't that many. Some actors may portray characters of a different race. So one thing people forget is that anime and manga are Japanese. They are not white. These are not white people. They're just very, very bright. That's a thing. There are different complexions, but do understand that colorism still plays a major part of problems today. So for people who have an issue with folks acting as a character from a manga, that's gonna be a personal issue. Like, someone's doing the job and they're doing it very well, So please do give them their flowers. But one of the other things is that this is the focus for films and TV series. Some of them made in the US, others not made in the US. Now, take for instance, Power Rangers is a prime example of where you're taking content and footage from its original Japanese counterpart and then translating that over into Western like style. So what you'll see with the Power Rangers, you'll see clips of them as like they're Japanese characters. You can see the difference between the footage from when they're morphed to the footage of when they're in the Megazords to the footage of when they're just demorphed and they're in their basic forms. So, or even when they have the costumes on and they're interacting. You have those different footages right there, but that is a mesh of content. And it's not the same, but guess what? Even with that stuff, that was still putting people in different colors. Like a prime example would be how, for a while, the black person was the Black Ranger. And how, if you look at every Power Rangers, not Super Sentai, but Power Rangers show, they have a mix of different ethnicities, and there always has to be one black person, one Asian, one white. I don't see too many Hispanics, but I think in some of the newer ones, we see some of those. So you still have that mix, you still have that representation, but how well is it being represented? How well are you seeing that animation? How well are you seeing those characters being put out there? And it's like, oh, this is a good representation right here. And then you're like, this one isn't a good representation, but you still have those people. And again, the Black Power Ranger, Walter Jones, aka Zach, was a prime example because not all black people dance like that. Not all black people know how to dance like that. That is an art form right there that, to be quite honest with you, I can't do. It's not for me. So some of the actors that I do want to talk about that they have been in live action animes, Mustafa Shakir. So for those of you that may or may not have seen, he was Jet Black in the live action series Cowboy Bebop. So, but he is an American actor. But again, people have a problem with the fact that, oh, he has a different skin tone than the character that was animated for the show, but at the same time, you still have black in the name, so it's like, oh, it's fitting. Not really fitting, but if you have a problem with that, then you shouldn't have a problem with that. Because again, this is someone who's doing a job, who is also making sure they are representing a character properly. Mahershala Ali is another one. He is an American actor as well, but if you saw the movie Alita Battle Angel, he played Vector in that too. But he's also done voice acting as well, and if you are a Spider-Man fan, he's also the voice of Uncle Eric in the Spider-Verse movies. So, but these are like two prime examples right here of actors who are portraying characters that were from an anime, that were from a manga, and that were not the same ethnicity as the characters they were portraying. Then let's talk about Jacob Romero, who plays Usopp in One Piece. And someone actually brought this to my attention, how in the anime, Usopp is he's being kind of whitewashed almost. Like his complexion is getting a little lighter. No, I'm sorry, darker. There was another person that was getting lighter. Nico Robin was one of them I mentioned. How she went from like a darker complexion and then to like a kind of pasty white complexion like later on, but this is during the time skip part.
They're doing the same thing to Usopp.
They are doing the same thing to Usopp?
Yeah, he's super light skinned right now.
Well, again, I mentioned colorism was another thing. So if you look at certain characters, especially like in American comics, one of the things is that like if you have a darker complexion, like myself, you're more seen as a villain, where if you have like a lighter skin complexion, you're okay. You're not a hero. You may not be an anti-hero either, but you're okay. And that's just that. Like, but again, as in 2024, that is still going on. And then even with Chioma, and I'm going to butcher her last name, and I really don't want to do that, but Uniela, I think that's how I pronounce it. She is a Nigerian South African actress too. So she plays Nojiko in the One Piece live action as well. But again, she has a more darker complexion than the character in the animated series, even though that character was in there very briefly, from what I remember, because One Piece is a lot. I fell off. The last thing I remember was they were in the clouds or something like that, like Skypiea, I think that's what it was called. That's like one of the last things I remember. I still see clips of One Piece with the Gear 5 and everything. The animation looked solid, I'm not gonna lie. No, it wasn't the Skypiea, it was the Navy front arc or something like that. But they had kidnapped Nico Robin, and Frankie was introduced into it too. So I'm like up there, but I'm not up there because I fell off. Like, it's too much for me. So this right here is a list of voice actors, and I am not going to mention all of them, but this is just a list of Black voice actors who have voiced anime characters today. And some you know, some you don't know, but they're also in video games as well, and these are those RPG video games too, that again, it takes a minute for them to come stateside because they have to be translated from Japanese to English. So next, I'm actually going to touch on some of the voice actors that I have here. So Akron Watson, American actor, voice actor. He's done various voices. So these are someone who's a voice actor too. I do a little voice acting myself. There's always going to be extras. So just doing an extra voice. So you'll have people who do various voices. He does that in Fairy Tail, Appleseed, Steins Gate, Last Exile, Eureka 7, and Danganronpa is another one. But he's also voiced characters. So in One Piece Heart Gold, he is Psycho P. And in Jormungan, he is Willie, or Wiley, I guess I say that. But that is just an example right there of what the works of this guy has done. Kimberly Woods, another example. She's an American actress too, but she's also done work for different shows. So Miraculous is one, Fate Grand Order, Eureka 7, Demon Slayer, which is really popular, Naho Takada, she voices that character. Even Fire Emblem, and she's also voiced a character from X-Men 97 as well. And that character's name was Shard. So then next up, John Eric Bentley, who has a very extensive catalog of stuff he's done. He's an American actor. He's done stuff for video games like Biohazard, Dead Island, Starfield, Saints Row, The Last of Us. But he's also the voice of Viviana Westwood in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He's done narration for Digimon Tri, which I'm a big Digimon fan, so don't come at me. I love Pokemon just as much too. Obviously, I'm cosplaying a Pokemon character, but Digimon is my first true love for anime. And even with Naruto Shippuden, he is the voice of Son Goku. Again, you can also please remember, these are English voice actors, not the voice actors for the Japanese. If they know Japanese, more power to them. I wish. Ogie Banks is another guy, American actor, voice actor, who voices Firestorm in Injustice 2. He also voices Hulk Holmes and Nelson Latimer in Fallout 4, but in Naruto and Boruto, he also voices Darui and Omoe. Then next up, I have Danny Chambers. She is also an American actress. She voices Becky Blackbell in Spy Family, Rosella in Seven Deadly Sins, Mawada Bua in My Hero Academia. If you haven't seen The World Ends With You, I recommend that. It's a short anime, but she's also the voice of Rhyme as well. Fruit Baskets is another one. She is the class VP, and she's also done work in Horimiya as well. And then next up we have Shay Moore, who is, if you've seen Soul Eater, she voices Nibus in that one. She also has done work in Eden of the East, and she's done work for Phantom, Requiem for the Phantom, and it was Lizzie Garland, and she's also done video game voice acting work as well. So next up, I'm going to touch on a few characters that I have, and this isn't every character, so please do understand that I didn't get everyone. I couldn't get everyone, and I couldn't fit it within like an hour time slot because there's so many characters out there. And as much as I want to put all of them in here, I can't, because I'd be up here for more than an hour. So first off, Afro Samurai. For those of you that may or may not know, there was a lot of speculation behind this one about the Boondocks and how this was the character Huey as an adult, and then they had another character named Riley, and I don't know who he was supposed to be in this one because I never actually got to watch this. I knew about it, but I never got to watch it. I know, don't come at me. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Like, I'm sorry, don't come at me. But I never got to watch this. But again, this was originally published in a self-funded Nonuha magazine, so Dojinzi. And this was the first appearance was in 1999. And this went from 99 to 2000. And this was written and illustrated by Takashi Okazaki. But this anime series didn't debut until 2007. And the manga was released in 2009. So this was a completely different chain of events for this. But again, prime example, some mangas were before the anime, some mangas were after the anime. But Afro Samurai, I feel, is one of the most influential ones because I had a lot of friends who loved watching this, and you only got to see it on Spike TV back in the day. Next up, Bleach. So this is kind of I'm a big Bleach fan, so this was kind of the easiest one for me to go through, and how they have certain characters in here. One thing I will say, and I know my laser light will work on here, but I talk about the different art styles and how the characters are drawn. One thing in particular is how you see a lot of characters with overdrawn lips, or they may have an afro, or they just have this eccentric black style that is mostly outdated. But again, hair is kind of a part of Black culture. It's a part of our identity. So for what you're seeing here with the Bleach characters, you see different hairstyles. You see bald, you see afro, you see, I think he has braids. It's not necessarily dreads, but his Kaname Tosu's hair is more braided than anything. But you see straight, short, long hair, and you see the different hairstyles like that, and you see how some of them can be in different designs too. But that's kind of, again, a prime example of Black culture characters and how long these characters have been in series and how some of them haven't changed. Yoruichi is, and I'll say this, as a gay man myself, that's a woman right there. And Megan Thee Stallion is doing her thing, for real. So, no, Megan Thee Stallion is not sexualizing anime, at all. The characters have been here. Then Cowboy Bebop, and I mentioned earlier one of the actors, he did Jet Black. So you see the difference in the character and then the animated version versus the live action version, and why people were somewhat upset. But again, this is a person who is doing a job, who is bringing a character to life. For those of you that are cosplayers, or those of you that like to dress up in costume, you're essentially doing the exact same thing. You're not necessarily just putting on a costume, a face, makeup, contact lenses, and going out to the world. Like, you are bringing a fictional character to life. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. But these are, again, characters from Cowboy Bebop, and these were popular characters. This was a popular anime, too. The Dragon Ball Z series, Dragon Ball series. So, I talked about black-coded characters. I don't care what anyone says, Piccolo is black. Like, he is a full black man. That's a black man right there. But you also have to think about how he is Namekian, and how the Namekians are very, almost primitive. And if you look at how Western culture views African Americans, or how they view Africa, it seems, even today, it's still seen as very primitive, because it's not necessarily where everyone can easily have technology by them, accessible to a lot of water. They're doing more agriculture versus having others do agriculture for them. But some of the characters, again, you see how they have the overdrawn lips, or how they're just overly muscular, because that is what a black man looks like in media. It's most 9 times out of 10, most of the black men are going to be very athletic, bodybuilder types. And that, again, has translated for characters for years and years and years in multiple different animes and mangas. But one of the most recent ones, Hellas, she is one of the gods of destruction, but she had kind of a Egyptian style to her. That's more of a representation right there for Egypt versus some of the other ones, even Mr. Popo. When it comes to Oob, I classify him as black, but I think he's more kind of Middle Eastern, I think. But he could be mixed, so we're gonna go with that from now on. Oob is mixed. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. These are a couple of characters from here too. Enrico Pucci, Muhammad Abdal, and I'm not going to pronounce his other one because I know I can't pronounce it. That is too much for me. But these are, again, some characters who, in the anime, now this is a different style of anime right here. Everyone is drawn like this, and everyone looks just so overly unique, that I will say. And then even going to Michiko and Hachiken, and how you still have a character with an afro, but you see someone who is more of a darker skin complexion. But I think Atsuko was more of a villain in this anime versus Michiko. But Michiko is also somewhat Brazilian too, I do believe. But again, I think she's kind of mixed too, but she pops up as one of the black characters when you're looking up black anime and manga characters. Naruto, the village hidden in the clouds, a full-on, almost full black village. Because you still have a couple of mixes in there, but this was probably something that threw me for a loop because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting a full black village of ninjas. And I think that's pretty cool, especially how you have the Raikages, they're black too. It's not like the white savior complex. You still have full-on functioning. B was probably the most stereotypical one because he was always rapping the entire time. I mean, Western, okay, that's what you expect most black people to do, but not all of us can rap, not all of us can write poems. I can do a poem, I can't rap, but I also don't like to rap about sex, drugs, money, either. because that's irrelevant. That stuff's always going to be there. Like, let's read a book. In One Piece, you have Borsalini and you have Kuzen, aka Aokiji. These are two characters right here. There was also another character he was in the beginning and I forgot who he was, but he was like moonwalking everywhere that he like walked. I forgot his name. I really did forget his name, but he was like more of an older white guy though. So that was a different person, but I can't even code that as black because everyone wanted to moonwalk when Michael Jackson started doing it. Then let's talk about Pokemon characters. You have Brock, who has been like the oldest, and probably almost only black character in the Pokemon series. But this is again the anime and manga. But you also have Iris, and then you have Leonore. So you have these characters, and they were main characters throughout the entire adventure. The only difference is that the adventure was about Ash and his journey, and although Iris and Brock were just kind of side characters, they still did their part when it came to being a part of the main character's story. And due to Leonore, she was a gym leader too. But also, I have fallen off on Pokemon as well because it's just like One Piece. It's a little too long, it's a little too much, and I don't have time to sit like through all of this like that. Soul Eater, which I really enjoyed Soul Eater a lot. And I think these are some of the few black characters in here. Sid, however, became a zombie like later on, but you can see how that was like his first like look, and then you have his second look as a zombie, and then you have Nines right here, right next to him. And you even have Killick and his companions, Fire and Thunder. So, again, prime example of how these characters are actually more drawn and have a little more diversity to them too, because you can see Killick has a fade, like it has a design to it. Fire and Thunder are two twins who have blonde hair. Nidus and Sid, like dreadlocks, braids, cornrows, so you have all of that. I would say that was definitely a very good depiction of black people in anime and manga. However, it wasn't full on just 70s, 80s blaxploitation, typical Western black person. It's just like a more, hey, we have a black person in here, they're included, we're just also not going to make the comedic relief. And one of my favorites, Yu-Gi-Oh! So, for people who don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is based in Japan. Yugi is Japanese. Yugi is not white. Atem is not white. Atem is Egyptian. Atem is black. Same with Merrick, Asiju, and Odeon. All of them. And Kaiba's Egyptian counterpart, who I forgot his name. What was it? Set. So it was just Set. Okay, so Set to, I guess, no creativity, whatever. But, so you have all of these characters like this. And this is one of my favorites because of how not only they were drawn, how they were introduced, and how it drew so much of its base from Egyptian culture. And even all the way down to how they dressed, the style, how Atem presented himself every time he would swap bodies with Yugi. This was definitely one of my most favorite ones that I saw because I didn't see that too much. Even though, yes, the black people here you see were villains for a short time. Or for just a little arc. Yami Merrick, that was a different story. But for a short, or Melvin, for some of you who wants the Team 4-star stuff, these are, again, prime examples right here of how some characters would be the villain and then switch over to like almost anti-heroes. Even though Siju was more of an anti-hero, she was more of the hero in this arc because she had to save both her brother and Odeon too. And then I also want to go into the honorable mentions of animes. Yes, Boondocks is an anime. For those of you that want to argue, fight me outside, catch me outside. Boondocks is an anime. In the Promised Neverland, you have Sister Crone. So she was there. Yasuke is another one. Great Pretender, Black Lagoon. Valletta New, who is in Code Geass. Chiron, who is in Fire Force. Rock Lock in My Hero Academia. And Canary in Hunter x Hunter. And she was, watching Hunter x Hunter, I want to say that she was probably the only other black character in there. I don't think there were any other black characters in Hunter x Hunter except Canary. And I don't even think I got to finish all of it. I don't remember all of it, but Canary, I think, was the only black character that was relevant in Hunter x Hunter. And in closing, so for those of you, I just want to reiterate, each of these characters represent us in one form or another. And we don't think about it. Having conversations like this bring up the questions. They bring up like maybe I should go back and look at this because we don't think about it until someone brings it up. So having these conversations bring up the ideas, they bring up the questions, and it's needed. But the other thing is we're also able to see different perspectives from other people. Whether you're black, whether you're light-skinned, whether you're coming from like a different culture, you get to see different perspectives. And most importantly, you all are why the representation matters. So please, please do know that. And again, my name is David Smiley. Thank you all so much for being here. If you would like, my social media pretty much is all David the Smiley. You can visit my website, davidsmiley.com. My social media handles David the Smiley, David the Smiley Cosplayer, YouTube, Instagram, all of that. Again, thank you all so much for your time. And I hope you all have a wonderful day today. Please enjoy the convention.
Good job, man.
Thank you.